Well, I'm Frank Wilner and live here in Concord. Have been here most of my life. I'm with the WNHN radio station here in Concord. Have been since 2012. Prior to that, I was with WKXL for a total of 10 years. So, actually, I was with KXL until earlier this year when I stopped producing new shows, KXL. Well, kind of an interesting story as to how I got into jazz. You know, I grew up as a lover of music and you know, the pop music in the 50s, Patti Page, Eddie Fisher, the Four Lads, the Four Aces, and Elvis was just coming onto the scene along with Chuck Berry. So I was into the popular music of the day. And my freshman year at BU, there was an orientation at Camp Sargent, Peterborough. And it's a true story. At the orientation, I got into a poker game with these guys, and you know, nickel, dime, quarter, nothing, no big deal. But I met a fellow in the poker game, Charlie Manuel, who we became really good friends, and he asked me what kind of music I was listening to, and I said, well, I'm into pop stuff. And he said, that's, you know, you got to get into jazz. I said, jazz? I don't know anything about it. So he started inviting me to his house in Beverly, Mass, and he had all these great jazz albums, Verve recordings of the great artists back then. And he introduced me to the music, and ever since then I've been a huge jazz fan. It was actually 1956 when I started listening to jazz and buying albums, LPs, and all the great Blue Note artists that recorded for that label. I retired in '07 from the VA in Manchester, and my barber, Bob Gifford, said that they were looking for someone to do a jazz show at KXL. And you know, like most things, I just sort of put it off, and you know, then my wife got after me. She says, "Why don't you go up to KXL and talk to him up there about it?" So one day I just happened to venture to KXL, and Gordon Humphrey, who owns the station, happened to be there that particular day. He's not there very often, and that particular day he happened to be there just when I walked in, and you know, he said, you're into jazz? I said, yeah. So what do you know about jazz? So he talked to me for about a half an hour, and you know, I told him that I had a very large, sizable jazz collection and was into the music, and after talking with me for half an hour or so, he said, well, let's give it a shot, and that's kind of how it started. So that was in 2007, and so here we are 10 years later, and you know, and actually, even though I left KXL in early January, they still play my shows. Frankly Jazz runs every night, all night, from 9:05 or so till 5:30 in the morning. And then I learned about WNHN, that they're a jazz station, or at least part of what they do is jazz and blues and so forth. So I got in touch with them. It was 2012, and so since that time, I've been doing a show called Voices in Jazz, which is on every day, Monday through Friday from 2 to 3. So that's, and it's an all-vocal jazz show. So it's a little bit different than what I was doing with KXL. I was shopping at Market Basket, and this lady, because KXL used to run ads for my show, and they were in there 2 or 3 times a week for the longest period of time. And I'm doing my shopping at Market Basket, and this older woman stops me, and she says, "Hey," she says, "you're Frank from the, you know, KXL doing the jazz show." And I said, "Well, how do you know that?" She said, "Well, I recognize you." She's from the, you know. So that was, you know, and I've had some people come up to me, and you know, at different times, if I'm in my car or wherever, you know, and talk to me about, you know, I know your show, I listen to your show, and so forth. So it's kind of neat. I worked with ex-POWs, prisoners of war. So I interviewed like over 200 ex-prisoners of war at the VA, and did their histories and so forth. And then also we had a monthly group which ran, I'm trying to remember when it started. I think it was 1988, I believe. So for about 20 years, I ran this group that consisted of ex-POWs and their wives and so forth. So that was fascinating to kind of deal with those guys.